A man in prison for a shooting that police say was murder, but was it?
A former juror in the case involving Salam Zora is now questioning the others who convicted him. Gino Vicci has part 2 now of his special I-Team report.
You know, I think that would have been it. That would have ended the trial right there.
We found one former juror willing to speak on camera. He says Salam Zora should be a free man.
I'd think about it 3-4 hours a day.
Dale Barr says he's been living with an overwhelming sense of guilt for the past 6 years. Barr was part of the jury that convicted Zora back in 2009. He was selected as an alternate and was not part of deliberations. He says the jury should have found Zora innocent even without seeing the evidence that never made it to trial.
I don't know why I couldn't get it out of my mind. I would wake up in the middle of the night. I just kept thinking that some guy's in jail for a long time and he shouldn't be there.
Barr, who considers himself a firearms expert, says one piece of evidence stood out like a sore thumb.
No sense that he would go there during broad daylight with all these witnesses with a firearm half loaded with target ammo.
Zora was carrying a 9mm pistol. It was a gun he recently bought for his wife, and on the day of the shooting, it was loaded with only 5 target rounds. The bullets are much different than a normal defensive round like a hollow point. On impact, a hollow point bullet expands in order to increase damage. A target round does not. For Barr, that was enough to cast doubt on the prosecutor's theory that the killing was a planned revenge for missing money.
You may be wondering about those fingerprints. Were there any on the knife or the pitchfork allegedly in the hands of the victim when he was shot? The prosecutor during trial told jurors there were no prints. However, according to the defense, this lab report, made only available after trial, suggests otherwise. In fact, there were prints. However, those prints were unreadable.
This is a self-defense claim, all right? Having something there, it's different than having nothing.
No prints became the center of the state's case. No prints on the pitchfork or the knife means Matti was not a threat, and therefore this was not self-defense. Rather, it was murder. In an affidavit filed with the Macomb County courts, shortly after Zora was found guilty, Zora's defense attorney Carl Marlinga blasted then-prosecutor Stephen Kaplan, accusing him of prosecutorial misconduct related to those prints. The affidavit states Marlinga was told there were no prints on the knife or the pitchfork, and for whatever reason, Marlinga simply didn't question the claim during trial. Marlinga went on to state that if he knew about an unreadable print, he says he would have called certain material witnesses to the stand, perhaps the lab technician or the medical examiner. Marlinga also criticized himself in that affidavit by saying he was essentially ineffective and that his client deserved a new trial. Well, we wanted to hear Kaplan's side of the story. He's no longer a prosecutor, he's a defense attorney. He declined an on-camera interview, but he did tell me that looking back, he still believes there was enough evidence to file charges. And as far as the fingerprints, Kaplan says that information was always made available to Marlinga. As for Marlinga, he's now a judge and is prohibited from commenting on the case. It's also important to point out it was Marlinga's decision not to use the interview with Matti's son, where he describes his father as the attacker. So in the end, you be the judge. Do you think Salam Zora received a fair trial? Did the jury hear all the relevant evidence? In Michigan, you can't interview prisoners on camera, but I did get a chance to visit Zora, and he insisted he acted in self-defense and should be a free man, but says instead he'd settle for a new trial, but this time with all the evidence left out the first time. As for Patrice and his family, he says the fight for his brother's freedom will continue.
We're not going to give up. As long as it takes, we're going to continue to fight until the truth comes out.
With this I-Team report, Gino Vicci, WNEM, TV5.
One final note, the defense did call some of the witnesses during a hearing for a retrial. That motion, however, for a retrial was denied, and the case is now headed to the state Supreme Court.